Good afternoon and welcome to Market View. Coming up on the show, there's a shake-up in Eswatini's retirement system and it's raising eyebrows. The Eswatini National Provident Fund is pushing to reinvent itself as a national pension fund. But with that bold move comes growing concern. Is it stepping on the toes of the Public Service Pension Fund? Will there be overlap, duplication, or even competition for members? At stake is not just the future of two powerful funds, but the retirement security of thousands of civil servants across the country. So here's the big question. Can the PSPF hold its ground in this new pension battlefield, or will it be forced to redraw the map entirely? Joining us will be Jethro Ndlangamandla. He is the Director of Operations at the PSPF, and he's going to separate fact from speculation and tell us what is really at risk. That is coming up on the show during our Enterprise Watch segment. But before that, per usual, our business news. It's good news for small and medium enterprises. The Minister for Commerce, Honorable Manqoba Khumalo, has officially launched the 1.35 million eMalangeni Production Incentive Scheme 2.0. It targets the textile and clothing sector. Now, during the launch at the trade fair, the Minister announced that the scheme will be implemented under the Eswatini National Industrial Development Corporation in partnership with the Ministry of Commerce, Industry and Trade. Now, this 5-year initiative will roll out in 2 phases. Phase 1 focuses on MSMEs, while Phase 2, starting in the 2026-2027 financial year, will expand to include large companies. We have a report.
Some people may not know, about 38% of our GDP is manufacturing in one fashion or form. That is why when you look at manufacturing as a contributor per GDP, we then rank highly on this industrialization index that CB was talking about. Having said that, mining is less than 2%, which is a shame given the richness of the resources that we have. Having said that, agriculture, if you include forestry and citrus and other things, stands at roughly 13%. And most of that is sugarcane. So in short, it means we've got an amazing opportunity not only to grow other sectors of our economy, but also to industrialize, because as those grow, we could do a lot more beneficiation of minerals in the country. And NEDIC, as an organization, therefore, exists for this reason, to say, what is the role of government when it comes to promoting these underserved sectors of our economy, and what is the role of government when it comes to beneficiation and agro-processing, the various raw materials that we have in agriculture and mining, forestry, and other things. The reason, therefore, for this particular workshop today is to really challenge all of us to think about the next level, because those before us have done what they've done to land us where we are. What's key, therefore, is what difference do we in the room make to tell the story of Eswatini in a different way that not only solves the unemployment problem, but also puts this country on a sustainable path to world-class, as their majesties have commanded. So my desire really is that we inculcate a culture where industrialization is truly embraced. It is very difficult to find a black-owned, Leswati-owned industrial company in Eswatini. One that exports to the international market, taking advantage of AGOA, taking advantage of COMESA, taking advantage of the AFCFTA, taking advantage of COMESO and other markets, including the ECA with Taiwan, that promises endless opportunities. What happens is we find people coming from outside the borders of the country into the country to take advantage of the work that the PS and his team are doing to create these opportunities.
All right, it's exactly 6 minutes after 2. That marks the end of our business news. We'll go for an ad break now, return with our discussion, our Enterprise Watch segment.
Eswatini TV has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Eswatini Communications Commission. We are committed to reporting news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that does not amount to hate speech or the description of gratuitous violence or explicit sex. For any complaints of our programming, please contact us on 2411-9600 or email info@eswatinitv.co.za. You can also contact the Eswatini Communications Commission on 2406-7000 or write a letter to ECCOM on PO Box 7811 Mbabane. Email address is info@ecom.org.za.
Welcome back. There's been growing talk around the Eswatini National Provident Fund's much anticipated conversion into a national pension fund and what this means for the Public Service Pensions Fund. Now, reports indicate a level of concern from the PSPF, sparking concerns about overlap, role clarity, as well as the future of pension fund management in the country. Now, as the ENPF moves to redefine its mandate, where does that leave the PSPF? Can it maintain its position in a rapidly evolving pension landscape, or will it be compelled to reposition? We're now joined by Jetron Langamandla. He is the Director of Operations at PSPF and is going to break down the transition, the uncertainties, and what is truly at stake. Ndugo, good afternoon. Welcome to the program. How are you?
Welcome, Ngoni. Thank you. I'm fine.
It's such an interesting time because, whenever there's something that makes people have conversations, you get into public transport, into a kumbi. This is the conversation. You go to church. Some churches have break time. That is the conversation during break time. At church, sometimes even after church. Perhaps we can start by looking at the legal framework and membership. Could you briefly explain the legal framework under which the PSPF operates? How are the members of the fund paid, and who qualifies for membership in the PSPF?
Okay, thank you, Mgoni. The Public Service Pensions Fund operates under a clearly defined legal framework established in 1993 by the Public Service Pensions Order. The fund was created specifically for the management of and administration of pensions for government employees. So this framework ensures that the fund is going to operate and function with transparency, it's going to function with accountability, and it's going to function within the law itself and within other laws that are legislation in the country.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I think that is succinct and is very clear. If we look at the position on ENPF conversion now, the Eswatini National Provident Fund is currently undergoing a conversion into a pension scheme, right? There have been reports suggesting that the PSPF may be opposed to this move, which is interesting. Could you clarify your position on this matter? If the PSPF has concerns, what specifically are you opposed to?
Maybe let's put this to bed and clarify that as PSPF, we are not opposed to the conversion.
Okay.
We support it fully. We want our Maswati to have pension after their working period, and that is what everyone wants. It would be madness for someone to oppose that. We don't oppose it. But what we should actually tell people is that we are asking for careful consideration of the transition and the formation of the ENPF conversion. What really is concerning us is the integration of civil servants into the new ENPF scheme, that it must not pose a financial strain to PSPF itself. At the same time, we are concerned that the conversion should not affect PSPF's ability to maintain current benefit levels that are enjoyable by the members currently. If that is in place, we are sure that both funds must remain sustainable and would like that to happen going forward. And we want to ensure that PSPF's statutory role in serving public servants remains clear, even in the bill, in the time of the bill. And post-implementation of the bill, it must be clear that we have a role and a statutory role to serve public servants.
It sounds like a fair session to me. It really is fair. And those are careful considerations indeed. But I suppose there comes dual membership implications. And we ought to ask the question, what would be the implications, both administrative as well as financial, if a civil servant were to contribute to both the PSPF and the ENPF simultaneously?
Okay, thank you for that, Mngoni. There will be split of the contributions, right?
Right.
So managing contribution and benefits of members in ENPF and also in PSPF is going to cause administrative strain. These are two businesses that are running their own different strategies. So ENPF is going to get asset managers to manage the portion of contributions that were received by PSPF. PSPF will also receiving a portion. So there will be administrative costs that inevitably you cannot avoid them. That the same money that is managed by PSPF would be managed in two institutions now. One institution is going to pay a certain amount of administrative cost, and the other will pay a certain administrative amount of cost for the same amount that was paid by PSPF. Administratively, it's going to be expensive to do that.
As it should.
That is one. Yeah, besides just the employees that are being employed, but the experts that are taking care of the returns or of the assets to ensure that there are returns. Those experts will charge a certain amount of money. So administratively, it's going to be costly.
Financially, I mean, we've covered the administrative aspect, and I think it is quite clear that it is going to be costly. I think you are candid when mentioning that these are two entities, and therefore, if it's split, it's going to be costly administratively. I suppose financially, that is also the case.
Look, let me explain how a pension fund works.
Okay.
Financially, this dual membership is going to reduce the funding base of PSPF, as contributions are going to be split or redirected to the other entity, affecting our ability and obligations. Our obligations is to the members in the long term of the members. When we talk about long term, we talk of in a defined benefit. The current working members are the ones that are paying the annuity of the retired members. When a scheme is well run, a retirement scheme is well run, you must receive sufficient contributions to pay the annuities, and there must be a remainder to invest to grow the asset. So when the asset is reduced, the contributions are reduced, our ability to pay continuously the retired members will be affected. Our ability, number two, to invest and grow the asset themselves and make a provision for the ones that are still working will be affected. There is no doubt about that. Yeah. So those will be affected financially.
You did mention that there's careful consideration that as everything develops, as this whole thing happens, you do not stray away from your mandate. And one wants to ask, with regards to competitiveness as well as innovation, in light of the evolving pension reforms and increased member expectations, what is the PSPF doing to maintain or to remain competitive, as well as continue providing value to its members?
We've got a huge task ahead of us with these emerging threats to the fund, that we must be enhancing our investment strategies. Investment strategies must be optimized to safeguard the returns of their members. We are going to do that. We are going to ensure that there's prudent risk management to protect the fund against economic uncertainties.
Right.
We will continue to modernize and ensure that our members are getting feedback, are getting instant information and communication.
In terms of projections, what would you say your deficit is going to look like if you were to project just the deficit from this whole thing?
Look, the deficit is a number that is saying if you were to pay the current members now,
Right.
pay their future, you're projecting that now we have 42,000 members and we compute that if we pay them now, what will it cost? So the current deficit is just below 5 billion. So if you project that deficit going forward, it is going to be worse, the deficit, for the reason that you'll be having pensioners that are consistently receiving a pension, but their contribution that are being received do not match the benefits that are coming. So the deficit is going to grow.
If the conversion of the ENPF into a pension scheme proceeds as currently proposed, what impact will this have on the sustainability and future of the PSPF? Do you believe the PSPF will remain viable in the long term?
In its current form, that is PSPF.
Right.
The business is very viable in its current form.
No doubt.
We have strategies in place. We have the way to grow the business. But if the bill continues in its current form, the sustainability of PSPF is threatened. It's threatened in the sense that there will be a time where the contributions that are being received will not be able to match the benefits that will be paid. And that is not a very long time to happen. It is threatened by the contributions that are being reduced. But in its current form, it is viable business.
No doubt. Thank you so much, Mr. Ndlangamandla. He is speaking on what the ENPF's transition to a pension fund means for the PSPF. Really, really, understandable answers that he has given us. Very clear, very comprehensible. And ours is to continue to track the story as it continues to develop. But for now, this is what we have, and quite satisfying, if I may say so myself. We'll go for an ad break. We have Sonny Lesbia for our market analysis after the ad break.
Eswatini TV has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Eswatini Communications Commission. We are committed to reporting news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that does not amount to hate speech or the description of gratuitous violence or explicit sex. For any complaints of our programming, please contact us on 2411-9600 or email info@eswatinitv.co.za. You can also contact the Eswatini Communications Commission on 2406-7000 or write a letter to ECCOM on PO Box 7811 Mbabane. Email address is info@ecom.org.za.
When you choose your adventures, you do so with an open heart and a desire for the unexpected. You embark on journeys to discover new worlds full of wonder. You choose a path to awaken your senses, a world to make you look up and realize just how inspiring this life can be. arrive and awaken your heart. Explore life in ways only thought possible in your dreams. Discover just how far you go to expand your understanding of life's greatest mysteries. There's just one place on this planet with so much to offer. Now is the time for you to have the royal experience.
Imagine being part of a journey that uncovers the beauty of untold stories. Get ready to be part of something epic. You don't want to be left out, and you definitely don't want to miss out. Join the journey of uncovering untold stories through art, words, and hands. O-U-T out. Well, that's poetry. Poetry. Don't blink or you'll miss it. Every Monday, 6:30 p.m. Screen's own Eyes Glued.
Welcome back. We have Sandalas Bia on standby virtually, who is going to help us decode today's indices, what is happening in Wall Street, what is happening everywhere with regards to our markets. Suddenly, a very good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for making time. Let's look at the U.S. markets first. We are seeing here the Nasdaq dragging tech stocks down by over 1%. The Dow is slipping slightly. What does this divergence tell us about the appetite for growth versus value stocks in the current U.S. Economic climate?
Thank you, Mr. Nxumalo. So what we're seeing here is one of the main factors is, that performance that we're seeing coming out of those AI stocks, the likes of your Dell, your NVIDIA, because what we've seen is a lot of overcapitalization of AI stocks with the hopes that eventually they're going to turn profitable. So we've seen that the fact that those artificial intelligence stocks are not yet at the level where markets want them to be in terms of actual profitability on the ground. Now there is somehow pulled back on the gains that we've been seeing in the past week with the Nasdaq Composite losing some 250 points there, being one of the biggest losers. And then also there are issues towards the fact that when today in the US it's actually Labor Day, so we're not going to be seeing markets opening. So those are basically Friday numbers and the futures numbers that we are talking about. So there has been a bit of that slowing down in economic activity or in trade activity towards the end of the week last week. And then also another factor, Nxumalo, has been that around the inflation. We saw inflation rise slightly, last week, and we do know markets are betting for the Federal Reserve Bank to cut interest rates this month. But we've been seeing that the Federal Reserve Bank are a bit dovish and a bit hawkish towards the interest rate story. So now this new inflation data that came out on Friday somehow put a pause in markets as well.
Looking at the time, I will allow you to continue with all the markets, but perhaps just premising what we are seeing here in Europe, FTSE, DAX and CAC all posted modest gains. Do these upward moves, what do they reflect? Do they reflect resilience in Europe's economy?
So what we're seeing here, Nxumalo, is basically a shift towards, those defense stocks. That's what's been pulling Europe up the past few weeks. So those changes in geopolitical arrangements with, the US pulling back a bit in quite a number of areas, and Europe being forced to take the brunt of that bait. And so we're seeing that fact that Europeans are willing to spend more on their own defense as one of those catalytic factors. So that's what we've been seeing pulling markets up. And we've seen that, Norway has already come out to state that they are going to purchase around, 5 submarines from the UK. So that's what's been pulling up the FTSE 100. And when you look into Germany, if you look at the DAX, again, it's up a bit, largely because of those defense stocks stocks, and we do know that Germany is making leeway towards that mining of those lithium within Germany, and that's probably the growth catalyst that Germany needs. And then in France, we know that France is somewhat heading for a vote of no confidence on their prime minister, but there are a bit of sentiments in terms of what France is going to do with that budget deficit. So we're seeing the prime minister come out to talk around those issues, and really hoping that if he gets this new mandate, he's going to deal with those issues. So it's just those geopolitical issues and those politics, and the basic move of markets towards the defense stocks that's pulling Europe up. When you come into Asia, what we're seeing is there's a bit of a pullback on the Nikkei with with the overall Asia region watching and looking at that conference of Eurasian countries that President Xi is in with together with the President Vladimir Putin and Narendra Modi. So that somehow just tells the world that countries across the globe are looking for new trade partners given those uncertainties with trade with the US, and we're seeing the Hang Seng there putting up some 539 points, and the Shanghai Composite Index putting up some 17.6 points, on the background of improving retail activity and wholesale activity within China, the mainland, and Hong Kong. South Africa, holding steady at the 102 mark, largely driven by the fact that we're seeing, iron ore rebounding, and gold continues to glitter even better, and that actually bodes well for the metal heavy Johannesburg Stock Exchange, and we're seeing earnings continuing to be on that high note. On the local markets, we've seen the Eswatini Stock Exchange gaining some percentage points in last week's trade. Given some trades within Res Corporation, so that somehow pushed the index back up to 483.43 points, but it remains quite stable and stagnant today. And then in terms of gold, we do know that the bets that the Federal Reserve Bank is going to actually lower interest rates in this month remains very high and very optimistic. So we're seeing a bit of shift towards more gold, because we do know that as the real interest rate goes down in markets, that means even the real return on investments and on equities and other interest-bearing assets also does go down, but gold tends to hold that value. So we're seeing gold just appreciating a bit in today's trade, and our Brent crude as well also remaining gaining a bit, but relatively flat on the background of that improvement in the summer demand market, and also those improvements in terms of the Russian output. And then when you come into the currency, what we're seeing is some general improvements in the lilangeni across the dollar, the lilangeni across the euro, and also the lilangeni against the Japanese yen. So we're seeing those improvements across the board, largely driven by the fact that we're seeing that those metals are propping up the JSE and alternatively and effectively propping up the lilangeni, and also the fact that the US is going into Labor Day today, so there isn't going to be much trade happening in the US, so that somehow also works in favor of the lilangeni. Thank you.
Appreciate your time, Sanele. Have yourself a good afternoon. Thank you to our viewers as well for staying with us. This has been Market View, the first edition of the month, but also the first edition of the week. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Bye-bye.